Russia, the largest country in the world, with its 22 republics, has a unique variety of landscapes, climates, regions, and peoples. In the south, at the foothills of the Urals, stretches Bashkortostan, better known here as Bashkiria, in which one of the main economic resources is beekeeping. Here, behind each house, in every yard, everyone keeps hives. These hills covered by forests are the sanctuary of a unique bee, the Burzyan bee. In 1986, the creation of the Shilgan-Tash Nature Reserve allowed the last Bortovich, the forest beekeepers, to maintain a singular breeding tradition. Sabi Galin is a forest ranger in the Shilgan-Tash Reserve, and he's one of the latest Bortovich to harvest the wild honey of the Burzyan wild bee. Fall settles in on the Shilgan-Tash Nature Reserve. Sabi Galin lives in the small village of Gadel Garayero, bordering the reserve. September is an important month for him. He is preparing for the annual harvest of wild honey. In Bashkortostan, the Burzyan wild bee is a member of the local families, and village schools offer courses in beekeeping at a young age. Today, Sabi visits his old friend Rafik, a traditional beekeeper and former beekeeping professor.
Hello, is anyone there?
Oh, hello, how are you?
Everything is good, and how are you?
Going slow like an old guy. It's good you came. My sons are at the hives doing their autumn preparations.
Shall we go see him?
Let's go.
Rafik's sons are visiting the hives for their autumn checkup. This verification will prepare the hives before the long Ural winter, with temperatures often descending to around -40 degrees. They must also ensure that the bees have enough honey stored away to survive. Each hive must have at least 55 pounds of honey in reserve to ensure the survival of the colony.
This is a Russian species, which we call the Burzyan wild honeybee, and we've been able to preserve their purity. Its characteristics are very valuable for us. It survives well during the winter season, which is very important in our climate.
When other bees from the Carpathian Mountains come here, they don't survive our winter. Only the Burzyan wild bees survive it. It happens naturally. We can't control it.
And as they evolved, over thousands of years, the Burzyan wild bees developed another unique ability. They adapted to the linden tree's very short honey flow period. They work non-stop for a week to 10 days, giving 150%. If we compare them with other species in the same conditions, our bees produce 1.5 to 2 times more honey than an Italian bee, a Carpathian mountain bee, or a Caucasian mountain bee.
The Burzyanka honey comes mainly from linden trees. The Bashkiria region is exclusively forests. The only source of nectar and pollen for pollinators like the bees are trees, and among them, the linden trees are the most floriferous.
The bees' lifestyle is very surprising. They're independent. They don't need instructions. They do everything by instinct. If our human society worked in the same manner, the world would live in peace. Each one of us would make the efforts he or she was capable of and consume only according to their needs. And then life on Earth would be ideal, because the way of life of a bee colony is ideal.
Autumn in Bashkiria is often very rainy, and it is impossible to go into the forest on a motorcycle. The only means of transport to reach the wild beehives, called borts, is by horse.
Malish, come on, boy. Tomorrow, I'll go into the forest to harvest my borts. The horse belongs to the Shulgantash Reserve. He lives free in the fields. They lend me this service horse for my inspections. I made this bell myself. I even put my initials on it. With it, I can hear him from far off and locate him in the forest. Sometimes he disappears and I have to look for him for weeks.
In Bashkiria, the villages are isolated from everything, and people live in autarky. Here, each home produces honey, raises cows, chickens, and geese. In Sabi's home, as elsewhere, a honey pot is on the table at every meal.
Beekeeping provides additional income for the family. It's my first job. I'm a Bortovich and an inspector in the reserve. I work on the preservation of wild beekeeping. Wild beekeeping is passed down. My father, my grandfather were also Bortovich. It's a family heritage. I have 3 sons. I think at least one of them may take over after me.
Before leaving, Sabi prepares his horse and the equipment that he inherited from his father. The tools have not changed for centuries.
This is the Batman. I will put the honey in here. I almost forgot my axe.
Sabi never goes into the forest alone. He'll be accompanied by another ranger, Khalil, who assists him during each of his outings. Because if the Bashkiria forests are home to bees, they're also home to bears, wolves, and lynxes. The Shulgantash Reserve is located in the heart of the Bashkiria National Park. Classified by UNESCO as a biosphere reserve since 2012, it's exclusively dedicated to the protection of the Burzyanka bee. It takes 2 hours by horse to arrive at the sanctuary's entrance. The forest hives, the borts, are maintained by the Bortovich. These masters of wild honey visit them very regularly to ensure that the Burzyankia bee colonies are healthy. Borts are rectangular cavities drilled directly into the trunks of the giant pines. These crevices can harbor bee colonies for hundreds of years.
Look, Khalil. That's the savior board I was telling you about. Today the tree is dead, but in 1921 it's the only bort that survived. During the Great Drought, all the bees in the region died, even in the villages. The colony living in this bort was the only one to survive. And then, little by little, very naturally, that colony went out to repopulate the surrounding trees. If this colony had not survived, today perhaps we'd have no Burzyanka bees in our region. There, that's an inhabited bort. It's a cavity made for the bees. We create a hive that is as close as possible to the bees' natural habitat. Over here, we see marks from a bear. He was here this year. These are old marks. This bear here was small. And above, that's an adult bear that climbed to the top. On this side, there are many marks here. These are fresh marks.
In these forests, bee colonies are the target of many predators, bears, but also martens, woodpeckers, and even ants. They attack the hives to eat the honey, the wax, or young bee larvae.
In a bort, the bees are safe, so usually they like settling in them. Then once the colony is settled in well, we install the door, called a tukmak. This one is one of my borts. One year, I had up to 27 colonies. Last year was the worst year I've ever had. I had only one colony. This year I have 3. Gradually, it's increasing. That's natural selection. Those who cannot live die, and other bees settle in their place. They decide on their own to move to a place they like. If you install them yourself and they don't like the bort, they'll leave it. This is for climbing up. It's called a kiram. It's made from bull leather. My father made it when I was little. I watched him make this knot. Okay, here I go.
Сумка сюда, топор тоже сюда. Если гудят, значит живы.
They're buzzing. If they're buzzing, it means they're alive.
Не могу сказать.
These here are harmful insects, these moths.
Это
And they'll just get in my way. It's better they stay on the ground.
там что-то видать на...
I can see the honeycombs.
Это что-то как...
I'm not sure about the honey yet.
Тем более, если с ним аккуратно,
If you work carefully, they remain calm.
спокойно ведут себя.
If you make noise or tap too hard, they can become excited.
Оттуда начинают возмущаться. Холодно, поэтому они уже не улетают.
It's cold. That's why they don't fly away. They need a stable temperature, and when you work on a hive, its temperature goes down.
Собираем как золото.
We harvest it like gold, in small pieces.
Самые ответственные.
You have to leave them enough honey for the winter,
Тем более, он, если
because if you don't leave some honey for them, the bees will die.
когда вот эта пчела помирает,
And if they die, you have to start over from scratch the next year.
придется ему оставить.
So I do my best to not kill the remaining bees.
И их, вот, которые вот последние выводки, их, естественно,
They'll live until spring,
убивать.
so I have to be very careful.
Поэтому когда я там работал, сегодня вообще не
Usually they sting, but today they haven't stung me once.
было. Агрессивная семья,
It's a calm and unaggressive colony.
семья, хорошая семья не ужалила.
Harvesting the bort lasts half an hour. Before descending, Sabi must be sure to insulate the Burzyanka colony from the cold with ferns. He then makes certain the door is closed securely to prevent an attack from predators.
Сбор дикого меда как
This year, the wild honey harvest is not very good.
слабовато, потому что
When the linden trees were flowering, it rained the whole time, and the bees were not able to pollinate much.
дождь, там постоянно дождь была, и до этого
There's much less honey than in previous years.
слабовато в этом году мед. Тоже нормально.
This piece of honeycomb is good. The cells are closed.
Вот это уже
When they're dry, there's no honey in it. This one's dry,
не смогли собирать.
but this one here is good.
А здесь мало,
I haven't taken a lot, maybe 6 to 8 kilos,
не больше.
but no more.
Около там 10, может,
I've left them 10 to 12 kilos of honey for the winter.
так. Но им, чтобы на зиму хватит,
If we don't leave that honey, they'll die in the winter.
весь мед. Тогда они...
The bee colony is more important to me than the honey.
Поэтому мне мед не
That's why I've left them a little more this year.
поэтому там побольше оставляю в этом году.
The job is not quite finished. Sabi must now transform his harvest.
Now I'll tamp the honey. We leave it all together, the honey, the pollen, and the wax, and we crush it all together. It makes wild honey. We leave everything because the taste depends on it. Everything is natural. Nothing is artificial. Then we eat it as is. Everything is good for the health. Tomorrow, I will take this to the Honey Reserve Office, and then they'll decide what they do with it. My job ends here. The weather's been playing tricks on us this year.
All through summer and spring.
Yes, all summer and spring, constant rain.
If the weather had been normal, we'd have harvested more honey.
That's for sure. But we never lose hope. There will surely be better years. The weather can't be bad every year. We are the heirs of wild beekeeping, and we will not abandon this craft so long as there are wild bees. If we stop maintaining and watching over the boards, the wild bees will die. But we have no intention of stopping.
Sabi and Khalil return to the village. The tradition of Bortevich, coming home from the forest, is to give some of their wild honey harvest to the elders to taste it.
Будем попробовать.
Очень хорошо. Ну-ка.
Oh, what a scent.
Сынок, аромат.
Я тоже попробую.
Фантастика.
It's fantastic. In a word.
А здесь
This honey is very mature.
уже пчелами
The bees finished their work.
приготовленный, отпечатанный,
They're ready for winter.
доведенный до кондиции, короче.
It's perfectly ripe,
Этим и
and that makes it all the more valuable.
когда мы отбираем бортевый мед, мы же
When harvesting wild honey,
не видя
we cut blindly,
попасть туда.
and we may cut pieces that contain pollen.
Вот эта перга
This pollen mixes with the honey and gives it a special taste.
и дополняет мед,
It adds vitamins and micro and macro elements to the honey.
потому что в составе
Because pollen's composition contains almost half of the periodic table's elements.
получается так.
The Burzyanka is the only bee to offer us such a honey.
Конечно,
Those who came before us made the right decision by creating this reserve just in time to protect our Burzyanka bee.
бурзянские популяции.
There. That's all there is to say.
Sabi and the last Bortevich of Bashkiria have a vital role to play. Preserve this Burzyanka bee, whose survival depends on one thing: their determination to maintain the tradition of these hives of wild bees.